Narayana namaskritya excuse me, naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayan nastapraeshu bhatreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtaki Srimad Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Hyabhadrani Vidunuti Saritsatam. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2. I believe we are on text 37. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm just pulling it up here. Okay. This is the chapter entitled Hiranyakashipu, the King of the Demons. We are hearing at the moment from Yamaraj. So I'll say it, and then if anybody else would like to say the verse as well, please do. Aho vayam danya aho vayam danyatamayat atra tyakta pitribhyam na vichintayama abhakshamana abala vrikadipi sarakshita rakshati yohi garbhe. Anyone else? Okay. So I'll repeat it one more time. Aho vayam danyatamayat atra tyakta pitribhyam na vichintayama abhakshamana abala vrikadipi sarakshita rakshati yohi garbe. So word for word. Aho, alas, vayam, we, dhanyatama, most fortunate, yet because, atra, at the present moment, tyakta, left alone, without protection, pitribhyam, by both father and mother, na, not, vichintayama, worry, abhakshamana, not being eaten, abala, very weak, vrikadibi, by tigers and other ferocious animals. Saha, he, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rakshita, will protect. Rakshati, has protected. Ya, who, he, indeed. Garbhe, within the womb. Purport, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is wonderful that these elderly women do not have a higher sense of life than we do. Indeed, we are most fortunate, for although we are children and have been left to struggle in material life, unprotected by father and mother, and although we are very weak, we have not been vanquished or eaten by ferocious animals. Thus we have a firm belief that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has given us protection even in the womb of the mother, will protect us everywhere. And then the purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. The Lord is present in the core of everyone's heart. Thus the Lord gives protection to everyone and gives the different types of bodies the living entity wants to enjoy. Everything is done by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should not lament the birth and death of a living being, which have been arranged by the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridishanivisto matasmritirjnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. One must act according to the direction of the Lord within the heart. But because the conditioned soul wants to act independently, the Lord gives him the facility to act and experience the reactions. The Lord says, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. 1866 Bhagavad Gita. Give up all other duties and simply surrender unto me. One who does not abide by the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is given the facility to enjoy this material world. Instead of restricting him, the Lord gives the conditioned soul the opportunity to enjoy, so that by mature experience after many, many births, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, Bhagavad Gita 7:19, he will understand that surrender to the lotus feet of Vasudeva is the only duty of all living beings. Om Jnanatimidannasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Tiswapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamam Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupa. Shri Rupa. Excuse me. Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. Happy morning to all the devotees. My obeisances to everyone. So again, I'll just repeat the verse here. 1 second, just lost it. Okay, so I'll just read the English of the verse again. It is wonderful that these elderly women do not have a higher sense of life than we do. Indeed, we are most fortunate, for although we are children and have been left to struggle in material life unprotected by father and mother, and although we are very weak, we have not been vanquished or eaten by ferocious animals. Thus we have a firm belief that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has given us protection even in the womb of the mother, will protect us everywhere. So in this report, Srila Prabhupada is really packing in a lot of information. So we have I'll just kind of go through each section of the purport. So when I read this purport at the end, I was thinking, I wish it didn't stop, because Prabhupada is in such a role here that, these are core principles of Bhagavad Gita, and then the way that Prabhupada is quoting one verse after the other to get to the point is just, there's so many other points within those points. And it's nice that Srila Prabhupada has given us his translation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, because there are so many translations of Bhagavad Gita, and they're of course none of them really, except for Srila Prabhupada's is embedded with the divine transcendental realization coming through parampara. And so these purports in Srimad Bhagavatam and the purports in Bhagavad Gita are very helpful. Of course, here we have this pastime of Yamaraj as a child, describing these events to these women, about just to consider, as a child who becomes protected in the womb, and as well, they're also being protected outside. And generally, as a mother, for their children, and fathers who are also very loving, they tend to always worry about their children. We're always thinking, especially when they're not in our sight or around us, we're always thinking, where are they? What are they doing? Are they okay? Something happened to them. So this is very natural paternal affection. And so here, Yamaraj is very expertly using this as example of showing that, there's protection, and the Lord is taking care of the child. And he even goes to the extreme to say that we have not been vanquished or eaten by ferocious animals. So this is a pretty strong statement, kind of like a wake-up call for the ladies. And and in Vedic culture, what I've heard and what I've been explained to by other Vaishnavas is that in the Vedic culture, truth or certain expressions are there, not in a very direct way sometimes. The way things are expressed are subtly, and therefore they carry a lot of weight and purpose. It's a very subtle culture. So here, Yamaraj is expressing it's very wonderful that these elderly women do not have a higher sense of life than we do. So indirectly calling them, like foolish, because generally children are quite foolish. And then he goes on to express about the Supreme Personality of Godhead giving protection. And so Prabhupada is so expertly starting off with the understanding of how the Lord is actually present in everyone's heart. And so he's there within the heart, and he's also all pervading. And therefore he's protecting everyone in all different types of bodies. And that protection, of course, these ladies that are lamenting, the wives, they're thinking in terms of the body as the self or the king. So therefore, naturally, they're crying. They think, due to that attachment to the body. And so Prabhupada is taking it a step further and explaining how we shouldn't lament for this living being, whether they're taking birth or dying, because the Lord is always with them, and the Lord is always there in their heart. And who's a better well-wisher than the Lord, who's the best friend that's always there with the living entity. So in that sense, there's no need to worry. And as we heard yesterday in the previous purport, Prabhupada was really getting into it about this, either way, philosophically, whether one is atheistic or believes in God, they, still have no reason to lament. And so Prabhupada is taking it a step further here and elaborating more on the position of the Lord in relation to the living entity, and how is it that the Lord is actually very merciful in taking care of everybody. Because the tendency when we are attached to, or we love someone very much and we're very much attached, when they get taken away, it's very natural to feel sad and quite upset that that person is gone. And for those who have some faith in God, there can be a tendency to feel that there's some inadequacy or misunderstanding in the position of the Lord in relation to why did that person have to go, or why did they leave. But here Prabhupada is really putting it forward that actually the Lord is there in the heart, and then he's not just not just there for them for the time being, but he's always there with them. And this is the position of the Lord. Then he goes on to explain even further that the Supreme Lord is also, he says, seated in the heart of everybody. And from him come the remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So in this way, we wouldn't even be able to act out our desires if it weren't for the Lord. We wouldn't be able to remember even who we are, what we're doing, or it's all by the grace of the Lord. So to even have the ability to act also comes from the Lord, and how to act and where to act and in what bodies, all of this is given according to the Lord. And that is, of course, according to our desires. And so Prabhupada is elaborating very clearly that one, in this purport, he's saying one must act according to the direction of the Lord in the heart. So that aspect is there. And the other aspect of the Lord's love is that he allows us to act independently if we so desire. And this is the unfortunate position of the conditioned soul, or someone struggling in the material world to want to be independent of the Lord's desires. In other words, one wants to enjoy the material energy of the Lord. So when one acts independently, meaning they don't want to follow the directions of the Lord in terms of the scriptural injunctions, then the Lord gives them direction in the heart how to act accordingly. So either way, we're always acting according to the Lord's dictation. The Lord is so kind, though, that He does give us an opportunity to. He gives us an opportunity to learn about what is to be done and what is not to be done, how to act, how not to act, and of course that's given through the Vedic scriptures. And this is also another aspect of the Lord, that the Lord is not only He's giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and he's allowing us to act out our desires and also receive the reactions of those desires. But he's also giving us the opportunity to learn about him. And because he's giving us that opportunity to learn about him, here the Prabhupada and the Acharyas, they're recommending that we take advantage of that, that we actually see that the Lord has come in his incarnation, as the scriptures as well, to follow. So the Lord appears in, as we know in Bhagavad Gita, in three different aspects. He comes as the one aspect as the impersonal Brahman, or the light that emanates from the Lord. That's one aspect of the Lord. And that's generally, people who have some awe and reverence, but don't have a personal understanding of the Lord, or even that understanding that he's seated in the heart. They come to that transcendental platform of seeing that there is a common oneness of energy that's spiritual, that's personal Brahman. And there's the other manifestation of the Lord as the super soul, who is situated in the heart of every living entity. And that's that super soul which the yogis who are meditating for thousands of years are trying to perceive. This is that super soul that I believe it was Dhruva Maharaj, when he was meditating in the forests, when he got that vision of the super soul in the heart. And there's a very beautiful description of this very, from his lotus feet to his cloth to his garland to his earrings, and just his paraphernalia, his decorative, aspects, and his beautiful face and his color. And it's a very beautiful description, actually, of the super soul. And then there's the realization of the personality of Godhead himself as the two-armed form Shamsundar. And then there's another incarnation, which is the Vedic scriptures himself. And as we know, Srila Vyasadeva himself, who is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord, comes. So the Lord himself comes to give the Vedas. The Lord himself is the Vedas. And then we have Vyasadeva, who did the commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, who is also, the form of the Lord. So the Lord is commenting, and therefore in all aspects the Lord is all good and all merciful, and that he is coming in this way to give us an opportunity to learn the process. So there's in the purport to the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Prabhupada is describing a little bit more, because the full Sarvasya Chaham Pradishani Vishto Matasmitu Jnanam Apohanam Cha. So he's seated in everyone's heart. From him come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And then the other part of that verse is the aspect of him being Vedic knowledge and the Vedas. And so there's three parts to understanding the three aspects that are being described of the Vedas. Is one is understanding the purpose of the Vedas, and then what is it, the process and the goal. Let me see, I'll look at that 1 second just to make sure I say it properly, so I don't get it mixed up here. So this is 15:15. So here he says, so Prabhupada is describing in the purport that one can attain perfection in 3 stages by understanding Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by performing the different processes. One can approach him, and at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says in this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. And of course, the conclusion is that one should give up all other duties and surrender to Krishna. Sarvadharma parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. And as we know, it does take a conditioned living entity, sometimes many, many births. Which is why Prabhupada says, after many, many births, quoting Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante. So after that, many, many births, then he actually comes to understand and surrender. And so because in Kali Yuga, we are so overwhelmed and short-lived and all such qualities like that, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has so kindly given us a fast track process, which due to our own, maybe new devotees out there have overcome this laziness, but at least for myself, due to spiritual laziness, it can seem difficult at times, but actually the process in retrospect to seeing the reality of eternality, and also in relation to the other processes that were performed in previous ages, this process of chanting Hare Krishna as a means to realize the Lord, to surrender to the Lord, and following the process given by Srila Prabhupada is actually quite easy and simple, and there's no requirement to thoroughly understand philosophically or perform some severe austerity. Those things come naturally when one chants Hare Krishna. These qualities and these things come out. I was remembering hearing about the devotees in in Russia when they were imprisoned, and I didn't read the whole book, but I just heard parts of it from devotees of how they had never read Bhagavatam or anything like that, but they were sincerely, with all their heart, even in such difficult circumstances of being imprisoned and tortured and famished, that as they were speaking, trying to speak to each other, giving class or just sharing like that, they were quoting verses from Srimad Bhagavatam and like that, without ever having heard them, because from within the heart, Krishna gives knowledge. And this is also, Krishna says himself, that to those who are devoted to serving me with love, I give them the knowledge by which they can come to me. And so this is the great fortune that we have, that Srila Prabhupada has so kindly given this process, given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a means to, fulfill the desires of the Lord and attain to pure devotional service, and actually the goal of achieving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And another example I was thinking of, as far as surrender, I was watching a couple clips of different devotees speaking, and I was reminded of the pastime of Draupadi as a great devotee and a woman married to not just one, but 5 really amazing, exalted devotees, strong Kshatriya fighting, men, um, born in a dynasty of royalty and such an exalted position, always protected herself. She had, due to her own chastity and abilities, she had so much power and strength. Um, her relatives, they're all very strong and, cultured personalities. And yet somehow the situation ended up that she was brought in the midst of all of these great kings and warriors, completely embarrassed. And they were trying to, of course, as you've heard, the brothers, cousins to her husbands, were quite envious, and uh, they wanted to marry her. So they, by force, due to the gambling match, took her and were trying to disrobe her in front of everybody. And the perpetrators obviously were the ones causing the um, embarrassment. And then her husbands, as strong as they were, and they couldn't do anything. And as much power as she had herself, she couldn't do anything. And when she finally came to that realization that nothing and no one could help her, even if they wanted to, um, she was holding onto her cloth, and she just, realized that I only have Krishna, Govinda, to save me. And so at that moment, she completely surrendered and raised her hands and called out to Krishna. And so, like, that is it's a quite intense experience for her, and it's a great example for us uh, to really meditate and see how, in the end, that's the only person we really have to depend on, because we may have many well-wishers and loved ones, but ultimately the one that is going to guide us and protect us is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, the Lord is so kind that He allows us to have the loving relationships of the devotees, of other well-wishers, because in spiritual life, as the Goswamis described, that our spiritual advancement is by our association, and that association comes, of course, by the grace of other exalted Vaishnavas that have mercy on us to give us their association, and through that we are able to surpass our own shortcomings. So there's a dependency on the Lord, and then there's also dependency on the Vaishnavas. And even someone may not be exalted, but if they have some connection to the Lord, some sincere faith to the Lord, and they pray and they have that connection with us, it is also a very powerful thing, because the Lord is always reciprocating with our desires. And here, that is the big factor, that the Lord is in control and He's giving us basically everything we desire for. And if we simply desire according to what's being recommended, then the Lord, in the heart, He gives that guidance so that we can actually come back to Him. And this is also the position of the devotees that are in knowledge. The Lord also gives a special grace by which devotees, or those that have some level of faith, can actually intervene in the lives of other souls, to help them to somehow or other come in touch with this process of devotional service. And that is that is the special secret desire of the Lord that he says in Gita. He says those who share this with others are very dear to me. And so even if we may not necessarily have a strong enough desire to do that, to go out of our way and share this knowledge with others, but even to try to do it as a matter of duty, that we are actually being inspired by somebody, generally a senior devotee or a spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada himself, other Vaishnava saints, or even other saints of other traditions, but seeing their desire and seeing their strong desire to help others in some way, it it strikes it should naturally strike a chord in our heart to want to assist them in some way, or to serve them in some way, that to help them fulfill this desire. And so therefore, even if we don't have a strong desire, but if we try to assist them, assist Srila Prabhupada, assist the spiritual master, or other devotees that we're close to, then we also naturally get caught up in that fire, and we will develop those qualities as well, to have that sense of compassion, to want to share with with others about the Lord. And then also, Prabhupada set up the International Society of Krishna Consciousness so we can have association of others and learn from them as well, the science and the art of how to do that and how they're doing it. So that way we can also take part in this movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is the fast track back home, back to Godhead. And the mercy is there for everyone. The instruction is there, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. I can't quote the exact spot, but I've heard it many times in different classes. That there are two things that Lord Chaitanya says that we should do. One is we just have to first just accept the mercy ourselves. And the second thing is we share it with others. Oh, three things, excuse me. So one is to accept the mercy, two is to give the mercy, and then three is to not make offenses, or to blaspheme or make offenses towards devotees and those that are in the process to being devotees. So yeah, I I have a few other things, but I'll stop there and see if anybody has anything else they would like to comment, add, subtract. Please do.
Hi, Krishna.
Hi,
Hi,
Krishna.
Gopi, Prabhu. I was wondering, thank you for the very nice class. I was wondering, at the very beginning of the class, you're reading the translation and the purport, and you're saying how this is really instructive, especially for women. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that, because I kind of missed like what the relationship was in there.
Oh yes, this that beginning part I was kind of just summarizing the current events in the Bhagavatam of the ladies. So Hiranyakashipu is giving instructions here, and he's retelling this history of the king, Sarvagya, I think is his name, and he died, and so the wives are holding on to the body, lamenting and crying, and they were crying so loud that even you know Yamaraj was hearing these cries. So Yamaraj himself came disguised as a child to address these ladies, and because they're ladies and he's a child, there's a combination, and Prabhupada was talking about in previous purports about the nature of the innocence of the child, and when they speak philosophy, it's very attractive for people. And so here he's really, Yamaraj is really using that being a child and them being women, and describing to them about the child in the womb being protected, and how even they didn't have any mother or father, still they were protected. So that was kind of the context of what I was saying about the ladies and like that.
Thank you for answering.
Yeah. um, I had a story I wanted to share with everybody, and but I was kind of shy last time to share it, but I was thinking about it, and then I thought, no, I should share, because um, there was this, and in relation to the aspect of the soul leaving the body, and that attachment of the family. So there's a combination of the soul being attached to the body, so it doesn't want to leave, and therefore in the purport, Prabhupada was saying that that's why the body should be burned in the previous purports. And then there's also that aspect of, if the um, relatives of the departed soul, if they excessively lament and cry, that also can cause the soul to linger around the body. Um, so like that, there's also the Vedic culture, which shows us, there's different rituals and processes by which to help the soul become fed along their journey, and also to help release them from that connection to the body in a way that they can move on. And then there's also the aspect of how everything is under the control of the Lord, and so according to the soul's desire and their own particular um, activities, they get a certain body to enact those. Excuse me. They get a certain body to enact those desires, and I was thinking how sometimes there can be, interventions of others, like karmically, different things happen, but then there's also other more exalted examples of devotees that were going to go, but then they themselves decided to stay. Like our great example is His Holiness Jaipatak Maharaj. He when he had the stroke, he personally revealed to some of his disciples that he was meant, the Vishnu Dutas came, and they were there ready to take him, but he said he still had service to do here, so he didn't go, he stayed. um so like this, the position of great acharyas, and then we hear examples of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj where he chose to go, like this, and then examples in Bhagavatam of Bhishmadev. Now, he had a desire and a will to go whenever he chose. So in one sense, sometimes, like there's other great devotees that they leave us, and it's by the desire of the Lord or Srila Prabhupada, and then they go, and sometimes they decide to stay. Whereas, when someone's conditioned, it's when we gotta go, we gotta go. It's like when you're evicted, you're evicted. So like that, even in relation to that, some people who don't have any belief that there is a life after death, there's so many examples of near death experiences and so many things like that. My own personal experience, I was only a baby, and I drowned in a bathtub at the age of 1, but I remember seeing my body floating in the tub, and this whole thing, and they were doing CPR and really trying to revive this little baby body, but nothing was working. And my father was sincerely praying to the Lord. He was praying to him that, I'll do anything, please let this child come back. And then I went back into my body. So like this, sometimes, who's to say, like, is this karma, or is this interjection of the desire of another soul? So like that, there's many intricacies in the way that a soul's journey goes through the material creation on the way back to Godhead. But the beautiful thing of our society is that we have each other to help each other, to pray for each other, and to be there for each other, especially at the moments where we're leaving our body. And so hopefully, um, I'll have that association of devotees to be there when I making the transition. And yeah, so thank you, devotees. If there's any more comments or questions, um, please. We have about
Hare
10.
Krishna.
Oh, yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This is Krishna Mayur. There's a few of
Oh,
us
very well.
EAP here in the temple. So thank you so much for wonderful, wonderful class, and also the story that you shared about your own experience. Um, I just wanted to say that I've seen this documentary about, which is kind of confirming what you share about a documentary about people who had near-death experiences.
Mm.
And and most of them, I mean, they were first showing like this was such a good experience that they could see light and so on. But then they were also sharing, actually, people who went through that experience. They were sharing their own not so favorable experiences, where what they have been experienced, more like we hear about Yamadutas coming. That's
Mm.
exactly what they were describing, that there were this ugly looking creatures pulling
Ooh.
them through darkness, and also beating them and so on. And that was going on until they kind of turned to God in whatever form they knew him, or Jesus and so on. And as soon as they start to pray or seek help, then that everything was turning into light and hope. And in this moment they were coming back to the body. But it was very because we read this in Srimad Bhagavatam, and of course, as a devotees, we have we believe we know those stories are real. But then hearing this from, like, people that they went through it, and not devotees, and they describing exactly what is in Srimad Bhagavatam, it was very, very interesting. I just wanted to add to that story that you share your personal experience. I mean, it was something in such a young age to experience this out of body. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare
Very.
Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Jiva Patti. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I guess realization based off the class and also Mataji was just talking about.
Ah,
Yeah, I think it's just amazing how Bhagavatam, when you read Bhagavatam, um, and the more you read Bhagavatam, like how you were just discussing about Jayapataka Maharaj's uh, what he was just talking about as far as Vishnu Dutas and Mataji's talking about the Yamadutas and how people that aren't even devotees are describing what's in what we read in Bhagavatam. It's just amazing. The more you read Bhagavatam and all these things that kind of, can seem like woo woo or, over our heads, is so amazing. Like the more Bhagavatam is read, and then you just go through life and you see certain things. It's like everything that Bhagavatam is mentioning is just being confirmed. And I just noticed that, like how Ajaji was talking about Yamadutas, and you know, um, there's all kinds of things going on about like extraterrestrials and all this kind of stuff, and it's not really so far out as far as reading Bhagavatam goes.
yeah.
It just seems like a normal occurrence, but you know, things that are described, maybe from a scientific type of perspective, or not necessarily any type of spiritual perspective, you know, it's already being confirmed within Bhagavatam. So I just thought it was very nice. Yeah, and that's just my reflection.
Okay. Thanks, Prabhu. We have about 6 minutes. Anybody else like to comment or yes, Targa Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I just thought I'd mention quickly. It's worth mentioning. You were talking about various Hindu practices for the benefit of deported individuals. These are described in the Preta Kanda of Garuda Purana.
Hmm.
And it serves it's a portion of it serves as a kind of a manual for those who want to try to benefit deported relatives. And there is the understanding in Vedic culture that one has an obligation to do that. And it's one of the reasons that it's considered to be very important to bear a male child, because many of these performances are supposed to be performed by one's son. But for Vaishnavas, we actually don't have to concern ourselves with any of these practices. All of what is accomplished by the various ritual performances described in the Purana can all be accomplished without separate endeavor, simply by performing devotional service. Just by chanting Hare Krishna, all those things are automatically accomplished. There's no necessity for any separate endeavor. And there are devotees who have practical experience of this. There are all kinds of devotees in our movement. And sometimes we hear extraordinary stories and we think that it's extraordinary. It only appears to be extraordinary to us because we don't have experience of such things in recent history. If we've experienced them, we don't remember. And so, because we have such a very limited power of recollection, we we are surprised or awestruck by certain new experiences, or uh, we hear some narration that sounds extraordinary, but it's not so extraordinary. These are the things that are happening every day in the lives of people everywhere. But sometimes devotees have experience of things that others might regard as extraordinary. Um, and um, there are devotees, for example, who have experience of their departed relatives being in a distressed situation after leaving their body. Um, and the devotees uh, experience also that simply by their chanting, they are able to release that relative from that stressful condition. There are all kinds of stories, but um, anyway, I just thought it's worthwhile to mention that, because sometimes devotees become distracted by um, um, separately trying to perform some of these rituals. Um, it really only detracts from our practice of devotional service. It's unnecessary. We just don't have to do that. Um, we should be assured that um, focusing wholeheartedly on simply um, the routine practices of Krishna consciousness is sufficient to accomplish everything desirable. We don't have to divert our attention to any other process. Hare Krishna.
Hi. Thank you, Prabhu. We have about 1 minute left. Jocelyn, yeah, I see you'd like to say something.
Hare Krishna, it's Jambavati.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I just said the name. Thank you.
All glories to your Prabhupada. All glories to your very wonderful class. I just wanted to share an experience that we had with Dr. Tirtha Maharaj when he was still on the planet, and we were all visiting Egypt. And I remember we were gathered in one of the tombs. I can't remember which one it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, spontaneously, everyone started to sing the Nrsimhadev prayer.
Wow.
And when I looked around, some of us were actually crying. And it was a very emotional experience. And like I said, I don't remember which tomb it was that we were visiting, but afterwards, after singing and leaving, Maharaj said that we had just helped a soul on their journey because they had been stuck, so to speak. And we just helped that soul to continue. So, what you were saying about, the relatives or the friends and acquaintances or whatever, lamenting, excessive lamenting can stymie, a soul from continuing on their journey, wherever that may be. So that's what that's what you reminded me of when I heard you say that, you know, and that's why we have certain rituals and, last rite, um, you know, ceremonies to help that soul not get stuck, you know. So thank you. I just wanted to share that experience.
Yeah. Oh, Krishna.
Thank you, Mother Kumari Gopi. Nice class. Just Taraka Prabhu, I just wanted to just clarify your comments you made just now. What about processes like Garbhodan Samskar? Are those things important or just focus on the chanting of the holy name? My understanding is Garbhodan Samskar and different rites of passages is very, very important for us as Vaishnavas. So I just wanted to get some clarity on that, please. Kumari Gopi,
Yeah.
I think we're okay because nobody's in the temple room, so to speak, so we can continue speaking on. You don't mind.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
In charge.
This is a good question. And it's something which Srila Prabhupada addressed for us. Garbhodan Samskara, and there are other samskaras. There's all different types of ritualistic performances that are done for good and useful reasons. But for Vaishnavas, as I was saying, merely chanting Hare Krishna can accomplish everything. And particularly in Kali Yuga, it becomes very difficult for people to properly perform different types of Vedic rituals. And so Lord Chaitanya simplified the process by inaugurating the Sankirtan movement, which combines the practice of bhakti with the process of sharing Krishna consciousness with others. Everything is accomplished in one fell swoop. Our acharyas have also simplified the processes for us, condensing everything into simple sutras and very simple practices. Srila Prabhupada gave us specific sets of directives, which, though they appear to be simple, they accomplish a great many things. They are like seeds, like a bija mantra, which may contain a tremendous amount of understanding, but it's all condensed into a tiny seed-like form that even from a tiny seed like a banyan tree is huge. It may cover many acres, but it grows from a tiny little seed, very, very tiny, like a fig seed. So instructions are given in that way. Tiny, simple instruction encompasses many, many things. You just have to follow strictly, and you get the benefit of all those many things. So for all these different types of ritual performances, even things like Garbhodan Samskara, which is, as you say, important, Srila Prabhupada never asked us to perform Garbhodan Samskara. He made it very, very simple. He said, you simply chant 50 rounds. That's Garbhodan Samskara for us. Very simple thing. We simply chant Hare Krishna. We do the same thing that we do all the time anyway, just do more of it. That's essentially our practice with regards to Garbhodan Samskara. everything for us. We simply chant Hare Krishna, simply chanting Hare Krishna. So, sometimes devotees get into trying to actually practice the various Vedic rituals. It's not easy to do if you try to do it strictly, and doing it strictly according to the prescription is important. You don't necessarily get the proper result if you don't follow the prescription very carefully. But the Vaishnav system is if we just chant Hare Krishna, we just chant the holy names of the Lord. It's simple, it's easy, it's hard to go wrong. There are no mistakes to be made. You just chant with attention and without offense, and everything is accomplished automatically without any separate endeavor. It's a solid, sound, universal principle. It's all that we have to do. Krishna himself explains this in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Sarva dharman parityaja mamikam sharanam praja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion. Sarva dharman, he's talking about all the different types of so-called dharma, all of the Vedic ritualistic performances, all of these things, all of it, you can forget about it, toss it out the window. You just surrender to Krishna, which is bhakti. You just simply, our business is just, we simply try to please Krishna by our service. We try to follow his instructions. Because that will please him. That's all that we need to concern ourselves with. We don't have to be concerned with anything else. All other types of religiosity we can reject, provided we take shelter of Krishna in devotional service. So, Garbhadan Samskara, we don't perform Govardhan Samskara other than simply to chant Hare Krishna. And that's what we do with everything. All of the different Vedic practices, all of the different Vedic rituals, and there are so many that are required. There's Panchakarma, which is supposed to be performed by all householders. We don't do that. Srila Prabhupada explained that rather than performing the rituals of Panchakarma, we simply perform Sankirtan Yajna. And that satisfies all of the necessities of Panchakarma. So that's always our system. We just simply chant Hare Krishna. Very, very simple, thank God. We need simple. Hare Krishna.
I know. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Of course, Prabhupada mentions this Garbhadan Samskara. I mean, I didn't count in, you can just see there's many references in Prabhupada's purports about this specific topic. So I think, I'm just cautious about, yes, of course, chanting Hare Krishna is the main process that we're accustomed to. But I think if we just say, sorry, samskaras, rites of passages, is not important in a devotee's life, just chant Hare Krishna, that's the most important rite of passage, we can start to take things very, very cheaply. So maybe we need to have a little more discussion on this topic. So thank you.
Well, I can say more about it. What is important in terms of Garbhadan Samskara, the issue is that the consciousness of the child that is brought into the womb is dependent upon the consciousness of the parents. And so therefore there are the ritual performances of Garbhadan Samskara for the purification of the consciousness of the parents. But so it's important, it's extremely important, but we have a superior process, superior to the ritual performances of Garbhadan Samskara is the chanting of Hare Krishna. And so Srila Prabhupada simply prescribed that we chant Hare Krishna. We're chanting a minimum of 16 rounds already anyway. And there is no ritualistic performance that can compare to the chanting of Hare Krishna. Vaishnav parents are going to have wonderful consciousness simply by the standard routine practice of their sadhana bhakti, and there's no limit. You can chant as much as you like, but you will not find another process that is somehow better suited to the job, or that is more powerful, or that acts more rapidly, or whatever. There isn't a process that is superior to chanting Hare Krishna. It's the Yuga Dharma, and it's the best process that's available. There is nothing superior to that. So Garbhadan Samskara is important, but better than Garbhadan Samskara is the chanting of Hare Krishna, and it should be taken very, very seriously. Not that we think that the process of conceiving a child is something to be taken lightly. It's a huge responsibility, and it must be done properly. But the best way to do it is to purify your consciousness by lots and lots of chanting of Hare Krishna. So we chant a minimum of 50 rounds before conceiving a child. And otherwise, prior to that, we're chanting a minimum of 16 rounds daily. On the whole, the effort is to try to have the best consciousness as possible. I have godbrothers and god sisters who chose to put off conceiving a child for many, many years, some of them decades. They practiced sadhana bhakti before attempting to conceive a child, because they wanted to have the best consciousness possible. So, you can take it very seriously, and you should take it very seriously. Not that because we reject the ritual performances of Garbhadan Samskara, that therefore somehow or other we are minimizing the importance of a purificatory process and taking the whole thing lightly. That should not be the mentality. It should be that we take this very, very seriously, but with the understanding that there is no superior process than to simply chant Hare Krishna. That's the takeaway from Srila Prabhupada's instructions. He mentions Garbhadan Samskara many, many times because it's important. And in this age, people have forgotten. They have no understanding of the importance of such a performance. And so legions of people are born with terrible consciousness because the parents conceived them in often some hellish state of consciousness, perhaps intoxicated or who knows what, with a mentality of simply sense gratification. So Srila Prabhupada stressed the importance of conceiving children in Krishna consciousness. But as I say, there is no better way to do that than to chant Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada never asked us to perform any of the ritual practices of Garbhadan Samskara. He simply told us to chant 50 rounds as a minimum before conceiving a child. Hare Krishna.
I have a question, Tarka Prabhu, and perhaps you can clarify it. Did not, in the early days particularly, did not Srila Prabhupada mentioned that he had not given all of the rituals, etc. And he said to do so would cause the devotees' heads to spin or something like that.
Yes, he made that statement. There are so many instructions, and they are very detailed. They are voluminous and complex, very difficult to perform. And he explained that if he even tried to describe them all to us, I think he said that we would faint or some such thing. That it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and these things were practicable in other ages, not practicable in Kali Yuga. And so the process has been made simple. It is condensed, but it is no less powerful. The process of sadhana bhakti is very, very powerful. It is no less powerful than all of these other performances. Um, the other means is not practicable in this age. You cannot do it to properly to give the proper attention to all of the minute details necessary to get the proper result. You cannot do it in this age, but you can chant Hare Krishna. And by chanting Hare Krishna in Kali Yuga, you will get the same result or even better.
Thank you, Taraka Prabhu, for sharing that. Agari Krishna Prabhu, you wanted to add something?
Hare Krishna Prabhus. So just to extend what Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu is saying, Taraka Prabhu, it seems that Dhruva Prabhu is asking, and also I'm also wanting to know, is that when we observe the quality of progeny, particularly amongst the Indian diaspora, it's actually decreased. One statistic is that, for example, there's a rise of autistic children being born in the Indian community. So is it that, okay, yes, Prabhupada didn't prescribe for practicing devotees, prescribe the performance, formal performance of governance samskars and other samskars. But having a practical program that one can actually, in one sense, mechanically follow, it's important to have in place. So not everybody, for example, can construct their life and their whole lifestyle around the chanting of Hare Krishna. So what an expert preacher does, even Krishna, he does this to Arjuna, is that, okay, if you can't think of me always meditating on my form, then you can do this kind of yoga, this means of connection. So similarly as well is that, okay, for practicing devotee, you can experience Krishna even in your own home. But you should still go to the temple. You should still go to the morning program of the temple. That is an actual program that Prabhupada put in place. So not everybody can be a Parivrajagacharya type of devotee, where they can just travel the world wherever they are and just see Krishna. They need shelter that'll actually force them to perform, uh, the proper means. In this case, we're talking about the conception of children, to actually follow the proper steps of performing it. For example, even in the conception of children, some persons might be able to prepare to do the steps to actually prepare for conception, but then they might not be able to protect their progeny while they're in the womb from lust. So there might be a lusty interaction, for example. Afterwards, is that okay? The baby is born, but then the parents unable to protect the young baby from lust, because we know that young children, they actually have a means they can connect telepathically. This knowledge is actually quite increasing. So within the home, because one hasn't been able to mold their lifestyle around the chanting of Hare Krishna, then there's a new soul in the home and they're not actually being protected from lust even after conception. And then there's contamination that occurs. So, would you say that's really what Prabhupada was doing in terms of, okay, in his purports, there's a lot of education around the importance of performing Garbhadan Samskar in in the same way that Prabhupada puts the importance of just very practical things to keep sadhakas who aren't on the level of raga, spontaneous devotion to Krishna, to just continue maintaining and fortifying the lifestyle that's needed to maintain a strong taste in chanting Hare Krishna.
Was that was that a question?
Yes,
Can,
it's a
can,
question. It's
can you?
like practical, yeah, mechanical. It's like, okay, people who need a mechanized system for self-realization, so like yoga, versus people who can become spontaneous, or they can have faith even without maintain their faith even without a mechanical system. So looking at Govardhan Samskar and all the system of samskars as a mechanical system for doing what you're supposed to do versus the highest, which is just connect to Krishna directly by remembering him, always meditating on his form, and offering him your homage.
Yeah, I'm still not sure I understand the question, but you know, what what more simple process can there be than what Srila Prabhupada prescribed? That we try to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna by hearing and chanting his names first and foremost. As you say, going to the temple, that's not possible for everyone. Some people don't live near a temple, so you make your home a temple. Um, um, you have kirtan in your home. You read Srimad, Bhagavatam, and other literature. Um, you can hear recordings. You can have recordings playing all the time, perhaps. Some people are in circumstances under which that may not be possible, but as far as possible, um, if someone is serious to do it, you can usually find ways around all kinds of restrictions. You can find some kind of a way to keep yourself in Krishna consciousness. Um, I once worked for a defense contractor. Um, I required all kinds of levels of security. I had to be certified for working with top secret documents and equipment, and security was very, very tight. I certainly couldn't overtly be a devotee. It would create all kinds of problems. I could not chant at work. Um, I had to be careful about what I said and did, but I was able to sneak back in the day, we had cassette recorders, so I was able to smuggle a Walkman tape player into work, and I listened to recordings of Srila Prabhupada while I was working with headphones, um, and and somehow I was able to get away with that. But so there's all different kinds of ways that one can keep uh, oneself in Krishna consciousness if you have a mind to do so. Srila Prabhupada gave us all kinds of guidelines, but hearing and chanting are the foremost processes for this age, and there's all kinds of ways that you can do that. Reading is also hearing. Um, but Srila Prabhupada gave us very specific and detailed instructions. Um, um, it um, it is comprised in what he describes as our routine work. If you were to do a search in the database for routine work, you'll see all of what Srila Prabhupada had to say about that. Our routine work includes rising early and bathing and applying tilak on the 12 parts of the body and attending Mangala Artik and chanting Hare Krishna, worshiping Srimati Tulsi Devi, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and hearing Bhagavad Gita, and engaging in devotional service as far as possible all throughout the day. Somehow or other trying to remember Krishna by hearing, by chanting, by serving in various capacities. It's all designed to help us to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And in the process of conceiving children, the critical and essential thing is that we must be conscious of Krishna. It's not to be an act of sense gratification, but an act of devotional service. And so we chant a minimum of 50 rounds prior. You may play a recording while conceiving a child. And but always you always chant Hare Krishna. You always remember Krishna. You always speak about Krishna and always hear about Krishna. Just fill your life with Krishna somehow or other. You keep paintings or prints of Krishna in your environment to always remind you. There are countless ways to do these things, but the objective is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. It's meditation. It's transcendental meditation on Krishna, to always remember him. 9 processes of devotional service. Remembrance is one of them. But they're all interconnected. By hearing and by chanting the first 2 processes, you will be able to remember the third process. And all of the processes help you to remember Krishna. There is that verse from Padma Purana that the essence of all of the Vedic instructions, or all of the Vedic instructions, should serve the primary instruction, which is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That's the purpose of all of the scriptural rules and regulations, restrictions, and it's the purpose of all of the ritualistic performances. It's the purpose of everything. It's all about remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna. So we have to try to mold our lives in such a way that we can always remember Krishna somehow or other. And if we're serious to do it, Krishna will guide us in all kinds of ways. He'll provide us with the intelligence. He'll make suggestions. He whispers in our ear. He'll tell us everything that we need to know. It can be done by anybody, anywhere. There are always ways to do it. Devotees have done it, sometimes in prisons, in all kinds of circumstances. There's always a way. There's always a way. Srila Prabhupada has said so many times that there is no impediment to devotional service. Sometimes the circumstances of our life may necessitate adjustments or changes in the specific nature of our devotional service. That may change, but devotional service itself, on the whole, cannot be interrupted. There is no impediment. There'll always be a way to render service. Precisely how you render that service might change from time to time, but there's always a way to do it. Unless, somehow or other you are cursed due to some dreadful offenses, you may be denied the privilege of devotional service. And so a devotee he always considers himself to be a beggar. He is always begging at the lotus feet of his spiritual master and Krishna for the privilege of devotional service in any capacity. He doesn't care, because he is a beggar. He is prepared to accept whatever little mercy he can get. So he doesn't stipulate that my service must be like this or like that. The devotee thinks that he is a beggar and he's happy to get whatever he can. Just please, somehow or other, give me some little opportunity to render devotional service somewhere in some corner of the universe. Just give me some opportunity to render devotional service. And Krishna will always provide a means, and some means is always available. Not sure if I answered your question. I'm not even sure I understand your question, but I don't know. You can tell me if that helps at all. Um, Hare Krishna.
It does answer it on an individual level, but then a structured program for non-practicing devotees or like there's just different levels of sadhakas. So it seems like what Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu is asking is that how to get people who aren't very serious about chanting, right? They're well wishers of Krishna and they understand the importance of practicing spiritual life, etc. But they, in one sense, one could say that Govardhan Samskar program for them is very attractive because everybody has a natural attraction to conceiving children, and they're going to do it, and to actually let them know that if you don't do this right, these are the implications. A bit like the program that Kashyapa gave to Diti when she wanted to conceive a child that would kill Indra. So Kashyapa gave her devotional service, um, but disguised, because she just was totally focused on how to avenge the death of Hiranyaksha. So yeah, basically that's really my question: is Prabhupada giving Govardhan Samskar, or at least what Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu is implying in his question is that by us highlighting the importance of Govardhan Samskar, we would basically be encouraging people who aren't attached to chanting Hare Krishna to actually do do what's needed to bring in a high quality progeny so that their lives don't get destroyed by a hellish child. But
You know,
they'll still, in one
if
sense, be practicing devotional service, just as Diti, in the end, she got softened by indirect devotional service.
yeah, well, if someone is attracted to such a ritual performance of Govardhan Samskara, then fine, let them do that. We have no objection. And it's not our purpose to discourage them from doing that. But if you have the will to do something, to take some positive action, and the ability to do that, then why not just chant Hare Krishna? Um, you could just as well do, it would actually be easier to chant Hare Krishna. Yeah, some people may be disinclined to chant Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna actually it's easy on the one hand, but it's also not necessarily easy. You actually have to undergo a lot of purification over lifetimes to come to the point of being able to chant Hare Krishna. So if you can't chant Hare Krishna, then fine, do whatever you can do. But um, if the question is, what is the most sound um, course of action for devotees to take in the course of our preaching, encouraging others who may not be able to apply the process of hearing and chanting. Um, I have to say that um, I believe that what is most appropriate for the devotees is to follow the example of our founder Acharya. Um, I don't think that we can presume to think that we know better than Srila Prabhupada, um, or our previous acharyas who all um, uh, promote the the practice of simply chanting Hare Krishna. Um, it's universally applicable, but some people may have difficulty with that, and so fine, let them do what they can do. But the best thing is to chant Hare Krishna. And the best course of action for us is to encourage everyone to try to help them, to elevate them to the platform of being able to chant Hare Krishna somehow or other. They may not be able to chant Hare Krishna right away. Offer them some prasad. They'll make massive advancement, heaps and piles of advancement just by honoring prasad. That will bring them quickly to the point of being able to chant Hare Krishna. That's just an example. But, devotees have to find the ways and means to try to elevate the consciousness of others. You give them a book, you give them prasad. Typically, fallen conditioned souls, initially, they don't have the capacity to assimilate philosophical ideas very well. So we just, Srila Prabhupada's program was to just stuff them with prasad and let them hear kirtan. They may not even be able to participate in kirtan, but if they just hear kirtan. So, the Sunday Feast program was organized such that, the big draw was prasad. It's free and it's really, really good. And there's no limit to how much you can eat. Eat as much as you want and you pay nothing and it's really, really good. But you got to be there on time. And if you're there, you're going to hear kirtan, whether you like it or not. You'll hear a lecture, a brief talk about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and it will all have an effect. Gradually, the consciousness will be elevated and come to the point of chanting Hare Krishna in ecstasy. Kirtan, if you hear a kirtan, you don't even have to understand anything about the process. A child, even a dog, a drunk person, anybody, they just hear kirtan and immediately they feel transcendental ecstasy. They get jiggy, they start dancing around, and they naturally want to participate. The soul in contact with the holy names naturally begins to manifest its spiritual nature. It comes out automatically. The holy names are so extremely powerful. I see a hand is up, and I don't want to hog the time. It's late, so Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Dandava Pranam to all the devotees. I've been listening to the dialogue that is going on. I just want to give a little bit comment, my 2 pence opinion. I don't think the way I'm hearing the discussion that is going on, I don't see any discrepancy between what Taraka Prabhu is saying and what Dhruva Prabhu and Agari Prabhu yourself, what you are saying. You see, in every age, we say in every age there is a particular type of worship. And so if you take Satya Yuga, the austerity part was very prominent. So people who indulge in the prescribed worship of Satya Yuga, they were more concentrated in the austerity aspect. That doesn't mean that the holy names of the Lord was not included, but that was not the prominent aspect of it. You come to the second age, when the sacrificial age, the prominent thing was sacrifice. And because of the sacrifice, they were all the ritualistic processes that entails in performing sacrifices was the prominent thing. The holy name was still chanted, but the holy name was not the most prominent thing during that age. In the third age, temple worship, deity worship, like worshiping in the temple was prominent. And in that, the paraphernalia that was used in deity worship was very, very like elaborate. Golden vessels, golden this, everything, silver this, all these things. But that doesn't mean the holy name was not important during that time. It was still used. Now we are in Kali Yuga. The Yuga Dam for this age is chanting of the holy names, the Sankirtan Yagya. So that is the one that should be enhanced. But that doesn't mean that the performance of the ritual, other rituals, Vedic rituals, is also not necessary. But we shouldn't put emphasis on the performance on the rituals above the chanting of the holy name. Because if we do that, then we are missing the point in Kali Yuga. Here, even though when we perform the rituals, the most important thing that should be involved in the performance of the rituals is the chanting of the holy names, because that compensates for all the mistakes that we were doing. So the fact that the chanting of the holy name is the Yuga Dharma doesn't mean we can't do deity worship. We will do deity worship, but we can't perform deity worship that as is supposed to be performed. But we need to something to compensate for the faults that we do whilst performing deity worship. And the compensation is infusing the deity worship with more of the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, which is the Yuga Dharma. So similarly, when we are performing any samskara, the performance of the samskara is not condemned, but at the same time, in trying to perform that samskara, we should infuse the chanting of the holy names. That should become more prominent whilst we are performing those samskaras. Other than that, because these samskaras you are talking about, when you are performing it, you have to be detailed and you have to be on point. A little mistake will give you a wrong result. But because we are in Kali Yuga and we don't have the capability to be very precise, we have to compensate our faults with the chanting of the holy name. And that's why even Prabhupada, anytime he's installing deities, Prabhupada himself says that the process, all the rituals that is needed to perform, to install the deities, Prabhupada was not going into the details. But he made sure that it's infused whilst performing that ritual, whilst the ritual is being performed, he infused it with the chanting of the holy names. He made it the prominent. Even when he was taking sannyas, when Prabhupada was taking sannyas, as the other mantras were being chanted, Prabhupada, if you read Prabhupada Lilamrita, it is said that Prabhupada was encouraging those who are around to go ahead. He was using his hand to signal them. They should chant the Maha Mantra. They should, and that is why his god brother, the one who initiated him, he said when he saw the way Prabhupada was encouraging people to chant the Maha Mantra, even whilst his sannyas process was going on, he said he immediately understood that this is the acharya for the holy name, the acharya to spread the holy name. You see, so the samskaras we are talking about, they are all important. But if we made the samskaras the prominent aspect of our everything we do, we'll miss the point. We have to make sure that all these things are infused. We infuse the chanting of the Maha Mantra. And I learned this thing from my Guru Maharaj, Shlabhatiteta Maharaj. Anytime we are even having initiation and the fire yagya is being performed, Guru Maharaj will specifically make sure that some brahmanas stand on the four corners of the room reading different scriptures, whilst the, what do we call it? The officiating priest is chanting the other mantras. The other devotees will be reading from different scriptures. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, like that. They'll continuously be reading from these scriptures just to infuse the whole process with the names of the Lord. So I don't see any difference between what Taraka Prabhu is saying. Taraka Prabhu is insisting and on the chanting of the holy names, and it looks as if Dhruva and you Nagari, I think. Well, this is the way I'm thinking. I'm thinking that you are thinking that Taraka Prabhu is completely condemning the performance of the Vedic rituals. No, I don't see it that way. I don't think he's condemning the performance of it, but he is insisting that we should be more concerned with the chanting of the holy name. It's like a Kadashi. Observance of a Kadashi is very important in the life of a devotee. You fast. But Prabhupada has categorically said that if that fasting is going to hinder you from not being able to chant or not being able to do your service, then don't fast. Chant and do your service. So that doesn't negate the fact that if you have the capability of fasting and at the same time being able to chant and do your service, then you don't have to do it. You have to do it. So this is the little that I have to say. I mean, these rituals we perform, like if even somebody passed away and we are performing the last rites, it's important that we perform the last rite, but we can't perform the last rite without the infusion of the chanting of the holy names, because we can't do the ritual by itself perfectly. And so we need the holy name to compensate for all the faults that we make whilst we are performing that ritual. Prabhupada has given so many instances, like if a house is haunted by a ghost, Prabhupada emphasizes, he says you go there, we perform arti. Prabhupada said we perform arti, blow the conch shell, and chant whilst we are chanting the holy names. He puts emphasis on chanting the holy names more than the ritual itself, because the chanting of the holy names is the one that is going to enhance, bring the the perfection of the ritual up, because by ourselves we cannot perform those rituals perfectly. And if it is a little bit faulty, I remember this story about which king was that? I've forgotten the name of the king. He was performing a ritual to get a son who is going to kill Indra. And in the course of performing the yagya, the officiating priest pronounced one mantra wrongly, just a little slightly wrongly. And the being that was created became a friend of Indra instead of becoming an enemy of Indra to kill Indra. He became a friend of Indra just because the wrong mantra, the wrong syllable was pronounced. So you can think of it. Those of us today, how many of us can chant the Vedic mantras properly? We go through the process, but in actuality, there are a lot of the mantras that we chant and we don't even pronounce the words properly. So we have to compensate for that, lapses that we have. And the way to compensate for it is to make sure we infuse the performance, the initiating of that ritual. We have to infuse it with the chanting of the holy names. Very, very, very deep. Because that will compensate for all the faults that we make whilst we are performing that particular ritual. I guess I make some sense. If I make some sense, let me know if what I'm saying makes sense. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you, Hari Chakra Prabhu. Yes, I think you reconcile things in terms of maybe we can say something like, I don't want to become more controversial. Maybe we can say something like, for devotees, ISKCON devotees, at least, Garbhodan Samskar, our Garbhodan Samskar is chanting 50 rounds as a minimum. Other things can be added. Maybe we could say that. Yashodev Prabhu, please enlighten us. Yashoda Devi, sorry. Oh, that's Hari Chakra. I thought someone else was going to enlighten us. So yes, thank you for the reconciliation.
Yeah, actually, chanting of the holy name is very important, but that doesn't completely negate the performance of the other rituals.
Right.
But whichever ritual we perform, we have to make sure that we infuse it. We will infuse it with the chanting of the holy names.
Yep.
Sometimes you meet some devotees, they perform some ritual and you don't even hear the chanting of the holy name. That is wrong.
Right.
We don't get the results because how can they perform those rituals perfectly? No. Right. So we are lucky that we have been initiated in the chanting of the holy names, and it compensates for a lot of things in our lives as devotees.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I was coming mainly from the point that, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj also emphasized, rites of passage for devotees, so that, the proper mood can be created. And so, like you summarized it nicely, if we can infuse chanting of the holy name, then everything is complete. Anybody else has any additions, subtractions? Thank you, Kumari Gopi. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ranta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Bye.
Prabhupada ki jai.